So let's put ourselves back in the time of Eugene. The church at that time had been ravaged by the French Revolution, and so because of Napoleon's rule and just because of the society at the time, most priests weren't exactly trained very well, and many of them were quite inept at simply just being parish priests. There was obviously a mentality amongst people after the revolution that if they were going to return to church, they really wanted something convincing out of it. These untrained priests often didn't have the abilities to raise the faith of these people. There are accounts of parishioners becoming dismayed, becoming raucous, becoming even violent because of their parish priests and the lack of theological fervour that some of these priests had. Therefore, it was a common practice for some of these priests to invite famous preachers or missionaries to their parish to rile up the faith of the people. We also have to think that in France at that time, everyone was Catholic. Going to church was just what you did as a part of your culture. So in your town or your village, everyone went to church. So if people weren't coming to church, it was quite noticeable. If in fact the whole village decided not to come to church, then something was seriously wrong. So Eugene and his first missionaries in the first years of the congregation were dedicated to preaching these parish missions, to going to these towns and villages around the south of France and spending weeks at a time there with an intense spiritual program to increase the faith of the people of that town. One of those aspects was obviously saying masses for people, but if these people were without pastoral care for many, many years, then some of them had not even been baptized, some of them may not have been married in the church, most of them had not gone to confession in years, therefore they were not ready to receive Eucharist. So Eugene told his missionaries that the central key to them being to them being preachers of parish missions was to be bringers of God's mercy. So the sacrament of reconciliation became central to these parish missions. The oblates were known to go to the village and to open up the confessional and to be there for hours during the day, and hundreds of people would line up at the church to go to confession, sometimes for the first time in 20 or 30 years. There was one account of an oblate who opened the confessional at 6 a.m. in the morning and was still in the confessional at midnight, when he had to leave to go get himself something to eat. And unfortunately, there was still a line of people that he had to turn away, but he said that they could come back the next day. So the idea of bringing God's mercy to the people was fundamental to the oblate style of preaching missions. There were many congregations who did this around Europe at that time. The oblate's distinctive flavour was about preaching God's love to the people, allowing people to see their inherent dignity, and allowing them to recognise that they are loved and that Jesus died for them to save them.